covering the entire Piedmont Triad and everywhere you are. This is WXII 12 News at 5.
I really don't feel lucky. I feel blessed. That's how I feel. I feel like God got something for me. Got a plan for my life.
Happening right now on WXII 12 News at 5 o'clock. Speaking only to WXII 12, the victim of last week's shooting at Carver High School talks about what happened.
Good evening. As students at Carver High School returned to the classroom today, 2 students were noticeably absent.
One of them, the victim of last week's shooting, talked today to our Rob Wu. He's live in the newsroom with the exclusive interview you will only see on WXII 12 News. Rob?
Cam and Wanda, we spoke to 15-year-old Antoine Porter and his father to get answers to the 2 questions on everyone's minds. What happened and why? The 2 still shell-shocked over how close he came to losing his life.
Just centimeters away. Just centimeters away.
That was the difference between life and death. Friday afternoon after the fire drill, Porter had his back turned to the shooter and never saw it coming.
I just heard foul, 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 gunshot, 3 gunshots, like back to back.
The first hit his lower neck, the bullet exiting by his ear. A shoulder wound from the second shot. The third grazed his neck. His ears ringing and face numb, blood streamed down his body. Porter now realizing he was shot.
I was just like kind of like stumbling over and stuff, like holding my neck like this.
Losing your balance a little bit.
Yes. And so I turned around like, I got shot, somebody help me, somebody help me.
Lightheaded and stumbling inside the school, Porter fought to stay conscious.
That's when I was like, I can't get knocked out. I can't, because I felt like if I would have fainted or something, I wouldn't have made it.
Paramedics would arrive about 5 minutes later. Moving forward, Porter's family takes exception with investigators, saying there was no ongoing dispute. While the 2 share the same bus route, they rarely speak, more strangers than even acquaintances. Antoine says he and the alleged shooter, Christopher Richardson, did have a misunderstanding last year over payment for a Nintendo Wii, but it never got physical and the 2 cleared the air. In fact, just earlier last week, Antoine says he tried to check up on him after hearing he was jumped.
After then, I just locked them up like, you cool, man. And then I just walked away. That's the last time I talked to him.
Now, once again, Antoine says he was completely blindsided. No back and forth ongoing dispute like investigators believe. His family also wants to say he is not part of any gang. And get this, Cam and Wanda, he actually ran into the shooter's father at a store over the weekend. We'll have more on that conversation coming up at 6. Back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Rob. Now, doctors have not given the family a timetable yet, but Porter says he's ready to get back to the Carver football field for his first season on the varsity team.
And this afternoon, the suspect in the shooting, 18-year-old Christopher Richardson, was in court. This as today we learn more about his criminal history and what happened at the high school last week. Margaret Johnson is live outside the Forsyth County Hall of Justice with more. Margaret?
Well, good evening to you. The young Richardson made his first court appearance here by way of video link from the Forsyth County Jail late this afternoon. Now, right now, he is facing at least 4 charges, including assault with a deadly weapon, discharging a firearm, possession of a concealed gun, and carrying that concealed weapon on school property. It all stems from the shooting of 15-year-old Antoine Porter at Carver High School last Friday. If he is convicted, Richardson could face a maximum of nearly 14 years in prison. Well, today in court, with his parents watching, the judge continued Richardson's $50,000 bond, also ordering him, should he make bail, to stay away from Carver and any other school in Forsyth County. We also learned through court records today that Richardson does have a previous criminal history. This past January, he was convicted for carrying a gun and marijuana possession on school property in Mecklenburg County. He was placed on unsupervised probation. Now, we offered his parents an opportunity to speak on their son's behalf, but they told me they didn't want to do or say anything that would jeopardize their son's case. They did tell me, however, they are in the process of hiring an attorney for their son. Back to you.
All right, thanks a lot, Margot. Richardson's next court appearance is September 26th.
Lawmakers return to the state capitol today for a special session to find protesters waiting for them, including educators, union workers, and the NAACP. Those protesters unveiled report cards giving state lawmakers a failing grade for the past session, and they called for an investigation into pay raises given by the McCrory administration. Bill O'Neill has that story tonight from Raleigh. It's all new at 5 o'clock.
Critics of the governor introduced new information today showing that Governor McCrory violated his own mandate to freeze state salaries. The report shows nearly 1,700 state workers received pay raises totaling more than $8 million after the governor issued a freeze on salaries last March.
Educators across this state are angry and insulted by these huge pay raises.
The head of the State Teachers Association calls the raises an insult to educators and called on lawmakers to launch an investigation.
I think they need to be held accountable. If they're going to give salary increases to individuals who work on their campaigns, for whatever reason they're giving them out, I think that educators and state employees deserve the same consideration.
Other protesters organized by the NAACP greeted lawmakers with a report card based on their work during the last session. They gave them an overall grade of F.
But this legislature is a failure in history, a failure in public policy, a failure according to our deepest moral principles, and a failure according to our deepest constitutional principles.
Protesters marched into the legislative building to meet with lawmakers to discuss the report cards. First stop, Speaker Tom Tillis's office. Both Tillis and Senate Leader Phil Berger earned 0 scores from the NAACP. Tillis wasn't available. William Barber, the head of the NAACP, says that lawmakers here have figured out something that no one else has ever done before. That is to make everyone mad. In Raleigh, I'm Bill O'Neill reporting. Back to you.
During a State Board of Elections meeting held this afternoon, the board voted unanimously that an Elizabeth City State University student could run for city council. Last month, the Pasquotank County Board denied Montravius King's candidacy, stating that his dorm residence did not qualify as a legitimate address. The State Board of Elections is also considering appeals on a decision made in Watauga County to eliminate an early voting site and Election Day precinct at Appalachian State, a move that voting rights advocates say discourages turnout among young voters considered more likely to support Democrats.
Right now, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee is holding a hearing on the authorization of the use of military force in Syria. Earlier today, President Obama met with the heads of key congressional committees at the White House, making a hard sell to authorize a military strike on Syria. The president told reporters the U.S. has what he calls high confidence Syria used chemical weapons on its own people. A development, he says, poses a national security threat against the United States and our allies in that region.
Oh, it's a hot day out there for sure, with temperatures in the upper 80s this afternoon. Live look at Super Doppler 12 radar. There is a front that's pushing into our area as we speak. That front has produced just a couple of showers out there, and over the next several hours, we'll have an opportunity for a few raindrops, but no severe weather, folks. You can see the rain. It's just east of Miles Crossroads, getting ready to cross over Highway 73 there. Highs this afternoon well into the upper 80s. Greensboro and Winston-Salem, our current temperatures, well, they are in the mid 80s as well. 86 in Greensboro. It's now 87 in Winston-Salem, 85 in Mount Airy. If you are headed out this evening, we're going to see warm temperatures close to 80 degrees early this evening, dropping down into the low 70s with the skies clearing. We've got less humid air on the way. You're going to love the 7-day forecast, so stick around for that.
Today marked the first day of testimony in the murder trial of Robert Dixon. The 49-year-old is charged with the 2007 murder for hire of his stepmother in Alamance County. It took weeks to seat a jury for the trial. The Burlington Times News reports testimony will likely last 3 to 4 weeks.
Right now, police are still looking for the person behind Greensboro's latest homicide. This happened Sunday on Bullis Street. That's where 2 people, 39-year-old Lakeisha Wells and 32-year-old Marcus Robinson, were both found with stab wounds. Wells died from her injuries. Still no arrest in a carjacking turned kidnapping that started in High Point and ended in Greensboro. Police say that 17-month-old Shylin Neal was inside an SUV when it was stolen from the food line on Byron Jordan Place in High Point late Thursday night. The vehicle was found nearly 12 hours later in the parking lot of a Greensboro apartment complex. The little girl was inside, but she was not harmed. And still no arrests in a violent home invasion that sent an 84-year-old man to the hospital. This happened yesterday morning on Lick Fork Fork Creek Road in the Ruffin community of Rockingham County. The victim tells the sheriff's office he found 2 men in his home, and then they attacked him with a baseball bat until he lost consciousness. He was eventually able to call a neighbor for help, and then that neighbor called 911.
3 men are in the Carroll County, Virginia detention center tonight accused of assault, and investigators say it was because of the couple's race. Cody Quisenberry, Waylon Pack, and Freddie Gwen are accused of harassing the couple, even pulling a gun on them inside their home. Quisenberry is also accused of punching the woman in the face. The couple say the 3 men had been harassing them for weeks. Controversy tonight surrounding a North Carolina church. The pastor sent an email to some parishioners saying she just wants, quote, white people to greet people at the front door. The email from the pastor, who is black, states that the Freedom House Church in Charlotte wants to, quote, bring our racial demographic pendulum back to midline, end quote. Carmen Thomas says it was so hurtful because she started attending that church because of its diversity.
And put a white face all over the front door. But when you come through those doors, you're going to see African Americans, you're going to see Asians, you're going to see people of color.
Church officials issued a response saying Freedom House believes in a diverse relationship within its membership, reflecting the larger community in which the church resides, doing life together as a church representative of everyone, culturally, ethnically, economically, and generationally.
You are taking a live look right now inside the City Council meeting in Greensboro. Tonight, we could find out if the Greensboro City Council approves giving more money to the Civil Rights Museum. Outgoing museum chairman Skip Alston had requested $1.5 million. Our Bill O'Neill is covering this story for us. He'll bring us any new information as it comes into our newsroom.
Some tense moments on board a plane that had to make an emergency landing at a North Carolina airport. Coming up on WXII 12 News at 5, hear from the passengers on board.
I'm Nicole Duker on the campus of a local university where you may notice something different. No laptops, no outlets, no books. It's kind of the theme at this student hangout. We're going to tell you why coming up.
And then at 5:30, a honey shortage in North Carolina. The reason for the pinch you might be seeing at the supermarket.
And I've got traffic updates that are important to you. We'll be right back.